How did you handle losing someone? Faith. Faith. I'm Irish, you know. I follow the Catholic faith. I've spent a lot of time at church. No one saw what Pierce Brosnan was going to say coming. At age 71, the former James Bond is getting ready for the worst. At the age of 43, his first wife died of ovarian cancer. Then, at age 41, his daughter died of the same illness. Now, something has happened that makes him have to face his worst fear. This is the man who played the hardest spy in the world. He is in a fight he can't win. Everyone is scared about what he's going to do next. Iris Drogheda is where Pierce Brosnan was born on May 16, 1953. He didn't have much when he was born. There was no money, no family history, and, it turned out, no father. Pierce's dad, Thomas, was a carpenter, and he went when he was very young. He couldn't remember his face, voice, or even being there. He seemed to have disappeared. May, his mother, had to carry the load. Her life was already starting to fall apart, but she worked as a nurse to keep it together. But she made a hard choice in 1957. Pierce, stayed in Ireland while she went to London to look for work. She had no other choice. Still, that choice made Pierce's young life worse in another way. Plans for a short break turned into 7 long years apart. At that time, he was moved from family to family. First he lived with his grandparents in Navan, and then he lived with an uncle and aunt in Trim. With each new house came new rules, schools, and people I didn't know. Pierce didn't stay long enough to feel like he belonged. To stay alive, he learned to be quiet and watch. He was always the new kid and the odd one out. His teachers saw something in him. He was smart, but quiet. Always looking out the window and never really there. Then 1964 came along and changed everything. He went to Green, Scotland, when he was 11 years old. His mother got married again. William Carmichael, her new husband, worked in a plant. It was nice of him to wait. Some things were the same in this boy's old home, but this new home made him feel different. Pierce was torn. He was mad and happy to see his mom again. Now she was seeing someone else, a new guy who wasn't his father. William tried anyway. In small ways, he taught Pierce how to trust again, fish, and fix things. He never tried too hard. He never tried to take someone else's place. William took Pierce to the movies one day. Goldfinger was the movie that year. Sean Connery was great as James Bond. Everything changed that night. Pierce also cared about Bond as a person. Pierce had never felt anything like him before. Bond was strong. Bond was sure of himself. Bond was in charge. Pierce also wished to be that way. Pierce did something brave when he was 16 years old. It looks like he quit London School and went to St. Martin's School of Art instead. He was just really excited about painting and didn't have any money or a clear plan. He really liked the work of Lucian Freud and Francis Bacon. He wasn't even thinking about acting at that time. His main interests were drawing and designing. He got by on toast and tea, while his friends came from better-off families. It was important to him to show that he belonged. But fate had other ideas. Pierce found a theatre school in South London in 1971 while he was still studying art. He saw a fire eater getting ready to do his act. Pierce didn't leave, he asked if he could try. That one moment changed his whole path. The group saw something in him. A mix of courage and being yourself. They asked him to join. Until now, he had never acted, but now everything was coming together. He had gone into a world of danger and beauty, just like James Bond. Right after Pierce joined the London Drama Centre for 3 years, from 1973 to 1976, he worked out more than ever. It was tough at school. There were more than 60% dropouts. It was hard to be a teacher. They broke kids down to put them back together again. Some quit. Some of them broke down. Pierce kept going, though. He had extra jobs. He learned about Shakespeare. He even learned how to do mime and circus shows. Back then, it was very expensive at £1,200 a year. Pierce didn't give up, though. A play called Wait Until Dark gave him his first big break in 1976. Pierce played a figure that made people feel bad in the thriller. The director thought there was something cold and disturbing about him. That edge worked. He played a brave character in Tennessee Williams's hard play The Red Devil Battery Sign the following year. The play didn't do well in the US, but Pierce brought it to life in London. His acting was praised by critics. People started to notice all of a sudden. He then went to movies. He had a blink and you miss it part in The Mirror Cracked with Elizabeth Taylor in 1980. He was only shown for a short time. It was only £50, but it was a start. In the same year, he was in The Long Good Friday with Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren. He played a small part in the IRA. The movie wasn't a big hit at first, but it became a cult favorite over time. And there Pierce was, quietly making his way to fame. Pierce Brosnan wasn't well known outside of the UK in 1982. He had done some small roles on British TV and in the theatre, but nothing big. Then something strange happened. He went to try out for a small part on a new show called Remington Steele. Not as the star, but as someone who was killed. It might have been that. Just one scene. But someone at NBC saw something good in him. They saw charm, screen personality, or something that drew them in. So they called him back, but this time it wasn't for a small part. It was for the main part. Everything changed because of that choice. A skilled American con artist in his 50s came up with the original plan for Remington Steele. Brosnan was 29 years old, young, Irish, and not well known in the US. The makers did take a chance, though. A lot of well-known American actors, more than 200, applied. Brosnan got the part. He almost lost the part because of his Irish accent. Executives were afraid that American watchers wouldn't accept a lead from another country. But as soon as he played the part, he was Remington Steele. People loved how cool, smooth, and mysterious he was. The show's first episode aired on October 1, 1982. It was a hit right away. NBC's second most popular new show. 15.6 million people watched every week in its first year alone. But the ride wasn't easy. In fact, the show ended after its fourth season in 1986. Fans were very angry. They changed their minds. It came back for one more run. The last show aired in February 1987, and almost 26 million people watched it. It's not often that a show ends with such a great ending. Remington Steele made NBC more than $50 million a year just from ads when it was at its best. Another $200 million came in from sales in other countries. More than 80 countries watched the show. In America, something strange took place. The number of people applying for private detective licenses rose by 340% from 1983 to 1987. It was clear that Brosnan's cool and smart personality had touched someone. Happiness did not come free, though. People didn't like the show for 2 months before they said Brosnan should be the next James Bond. Entertainment Weekly called him the most Bond-like star since Sean Connery in January 1983. After a few months, Bond producer Albert Cubby Broccoli got in touch. He was interested in what he was seeing. By 1984, the rumors were flying everywhere. NBC got into it. Their ads gave off an air of Brosnan being a secret spy. TV Guide had a cover with him asking what would happen next. And Fleming, who was married to Ian Fleming, said in public that Brosnan looked and acted just like her husband had imagined Bond would look and act. At the same time, Brosnan was getting a lot of praise from critics. In the same year, he was up for a Golden Globe for his part in Lucy. It was only his second big TV part. He had to beat giants like Anthony Hopkins and John Gielgud. After all that, Brosnan almost won. People who work in the field said he lost by only 3 votes. Even the real Astor family, who had been against the show at first, liked how he played the part. But his journey as James Bond wasn't going to be easy. Most people think that he was first given Bond in 1985. Not true. He was actually in the running for the part in 1983's For a View to a Kill. Brosnan was ready to go, but Roger Moore wasn't sure if he wanted to do another movie. They met on the set of For Your Eyes Only, in which Brosnan's wife, Cassandra Harris, had a small part. Broccoli looked at him and said, "He's my guy if he can act." But the studio got scared. Moore was offered a big reward of more than $3.5 million to return. That's why Brosnan's shot was again late. In 1986, something even worse took place. Remington Steele was no longer going to happen. But when people heard that Brosnan might be the next Bond, they watched a lot more of the show. NBC saw a chance. They undid the cancellation and asked for a short 5th season. Brosnan still had a job to do. He couldn't make Bond movies because of that. It was terrible. People used the recognition he got from being linked to James Bond against him. He was stuck. And while he finished the last season of Remington Steele, the people who make Bond movies went on. The part went to Timothy Dalton. Everything changed for Bond and Brosnan at that time. Brosnan was friends with Dalton. He had to smile even though it hurt to lose the part. The Bond played by Dalton was edgier and rougher. Things did not go well. In the US, License to Kill was a huge failure, earning only $34 million. Brosnan stood outside and watched. He was aware that he could have brought something else. Brosnan didn't go away from 1986 to 1994, which fans call the lost years. He picked smart things. In 1987's The Fourth Protocol, a Cold War story, he played a British spy. It wasn't Bond, but it was pretty close. He showed his range in a supernatural part in Nomads 1986. In Diet Coke ads, he even played a smooth hero in a tux. Just a little nod to James Bond. It was in the late 1970s that P.S. Brosnan met Cassandra Harris. Her name was Sandra Colleen Waits and she was born in Sydney, Australia, in 1948. They hit it off right away when they met. Pierce had no plans to fall in love. He only liked how pretty she was. But something took place. They moved in together quickly in Wimbledon. They got married on December 27, 1980. Cassandra had just gone through a very hard breakup, so this new part of her life was very important to her. Charles and Christopher were her children from that marriage. Pierce didn't think about it. He fit right in with them like he had always been there. Demeet Harris, Cassandra's ex-husband, died of a heart attack. Pierce officially took the kids in as his own in 1986. They used his name. But there was more to it than that. Pierce never had a father figure in his life, so he did everything he could to be the dad he never had. "I wasn't a father. I was just Pierce, and then I became daddy," he said one time. Pierce and Cassandra had a son together in 1983. They named him Sean. That made 5 of them. Life was good. The kids got along, and Pierce's career was taking off, but family came first. He wanted to show them love in a way he never got as a child. He made sure they were safe, happy, and seen. In 1981, something magical happened. Cassandra was cast in the James Bond movie For Your Eyes Only. She played a Bond girl before Pierce even thought about becoming 007, but while she was filming, Pierce met Albert Broccoli, the producer of Bond movies. Pierce impressed Broccoli, who thought Pierce could be the next Bond. But Pierce had a deal with Remington Steele that meant he couldn't take the part yet. Cassandra really wanted it for him, but she never got to see it happen. Things changed in 1987. Cassandra got really sick while Pierce was filming The Deceivers in India. They flew back to London and got the terrible news: she had ovarian cancer. It wasn't just a small lump or something easy to treat, it was everywhere. Pierce said, "From day one, we had a fight on our hands. After that, 4 terrible years came. 8 surgeries were done on Cassandra. She had chemo for a year and a half. She lost her hair. She was strong even though her body was weak. She had doubts about every method. The girl chose for herself. She was brave through it all. Pierce always stood by her. He was known as the quiet party. Always there, but most of the time powerless. When he was little, their son Sean would sometimes act like he was a doctor. It broke my heart. The cancer that killed Cassandra's mother had also killed her. It wasn't just bad luck. It was in the genes. That made things worse. They had to worry about Charlotte too now. Pierce began to push for early testing and education. He wanted to help other people, but it was too late for Cassandra. Her time was up in December 1991. Pierce was very sad one night as they lay in bed, and Cassandra whispered, "Please, darling, don't worry. It's just a life winding down." She was still the strong one even at the end. She didn't want machines or hospitals. She wanted dignity. She faced death on her own terms. She died on December 28, 1991. She was only 43 years old. Pierce and her son Christopher were with her, and Charlotte, who was studying acting in London, was on the phone. Christmas had just ended, and while most people were enjoying themselves, P.S. was planning the funeral. The hardest part was telling Shah, who was 8 years old, that his mother had died. Pierce had to take care of his 3 kids by himself all of a sudden. Sean was 8, Christopher was 19, and Charlotte was 20. He said it was the first time he had really felt grief. It was too much for him, but he kept going. He said, "Cassandra made him who he was." Later, he said, "She's forever in every fiber of my being." In 1994, Pierce Brosnan was finally cast as James Bond. His wife, Cassandra Harris, was a Bond girl herself in For Your Eyes Only in 1981. She was sick with cancer at the time, but she pushed him to try for the part again because she wanted to see him become 007 before she died. When he finally got it, it was both a victory and a heartbreak. GoldenEye, his first movie, was a big deal. Not just for him, but for the whole James Bond franchise. The movie had already gone through several directors and its budget had gone up to $60 million. MGM was almost bankrupt, and Bond would have been done right there. But GoldenEye made $353 million around the world. The scene with the tank chase through St. Petersburg alone cost $8 million. Brosnan did 90% of his own stunts, including a terrifying bungee jump off a 220m dam in Switzerland that was so risky that insurance companies wouldn't pay for it. The movie came out exactly 30 years after Diamonds Are Forever, Sean Connery's last official Bond movie. It wasn't just another movie, it was a revival, and it worked. Nintendo even made the video game GoldenEye 0007 based on it, which changed the business and brought Bond to a whole new generation. However, Brosnan's next 3 Bond movies made a total of $1.238 billion. But those successes came at a cost to him personally. When Tomorrow Never Dies came out in 1997, he was still grieving the death of Cassandra 6 years earlier. He put all of that pain into the character. It cost $12 million to film a chase scene in Saigon, and an entire Vietnamese street had to be built in England just for it. The opening scene of in 1999 was 14 minutes long, and it had Bond's first female main villain. They even used 120 gallons of gasoline to make a fireball that could be seen from 10 m away. The next movie, Die Another Day, came out in 2002 to celebrate Bond's 40th anniversary and almost killed Brosnan. A parasailing stunt went wrong, and 30-foot waves pulled him underwater. He got hypothermia and had to go to the hospital. That movie also had an invisible $300,000 Aston Martin and an ice palace set in Iceland made from 1,000 tons of ice. But Brosnan wasn't just a big hit at the box office. In 1996 he won the Saturn Award for Best Actor. It was crazy that he beat Sean Connery, who was nominated the same year for The Rock. It was the first time a current Bond actor did better than a former one. After GoldenEye, Steven Spielberg called Brosnan to offer him the part of Indiana Jones, but Brosnan turned it down to stay loyal to Bond. That choice probably cost him $50 million, but it showed how dedicated he was to the role. Things were going well until 2004. He was in the Bahamas filming after the sun went down. Life was good. He had been in 4 James Bond movies, which made $1.4 billion, and he was in great shape, working out and pitching ideas for Bond 21. Then, at 2:47 p.m., his phone rang. The producers fired him without giving him any notice or explanation. The call lasted 47 seconds. That was it. It was even colder because his movies had done so well. Die Another Day had made $431.9 million, which at the time was the most ever for a Bond movie. But the producers already knew they wanted a younger Bond, so they waited until he was alone and weak to kill him. There were 3 movie deals that fell through in just 3 days. Studios later said they were pulling out because they thought he was too Bond and hard to cast in anything else. His price dropped from $12 million to $3 million, and he had to fire 12 employees. He fell into a deep depression. When the Casino Royale trailer came out, his kids saw him cry, and that hurt a lot. His part had been given to someone else without even saying goodbye, and it turned out that the producers had been screen testing other actors for 2 years while acting like they still believed in him. That hurt more than being fired itself. But something else happened in 1994, just a few months before he became James Bond. On April 8, 7:30 p.m., at a beach party in Cabo San Lucas, he met Keely Shea Smith. She was a reporter, and they hit it off right away. She didn't care about his fame, she liked who he was, not what he did. They talked until 2 a.m., and within 3 weeks, he flew her to meet his kids. 6 months later, she moved in. They had a real connection, and as the years went by, that relationship became the only thing he could count on when everything else fell apart. They got married in Ireland in 2001, and the ceremony cost $2.3 million. The wedding took place at Ballintubber Abbey, a church that had been around for almost 800 years. Only 100 people were invited, and Judi Dench and Liam Neeson were among them. Brosnan wore an Irish kilt, and he cried when he saw Kayleigh walk down the aisle. Charlotte Brosnan died in 2013, and her death wasn't just sad. She was the 3rd person in her family to die of ovarian cancer. Her grandmother had died of it, as had her mother, Cassandra Harris, who was only 43 years old. Now Charlotte had died of it. She was 2 years younger than her mother when she died, and she had fought hard for 3 years as the cancer slowly spread inside her. Ovarian cancer is known as the silent killer, because it's often too late by the time it's found. In fact, 75% of women are only diagnosed in the late stages, when their chances of survival drop from 90% to as low as 20% to 30%. Charlotte was born in 1971 and lost her biological father, Dermot Harris. In 1986, Pierce Brosnan adopted her. Even though he loved her and gave her his name, the genetic curse that had already killed 2 generations couldn't be broken. For Pierce, it wasn't just about losing his daughter, it was also about seeing the worst possible version of history happen again. In 1991, he lost his wife Cassandra to the same disease. She had 8 surgeries and chemo for 18 months. He said it was life-changing to see someone you love slowly die. "You're dealing with death," he said. Then the same thing happened to Charlotte 22 years later. Pierce got up on stage at the 2014 Stand Up to Cancer event and told everyone his whole story. "I held the kind, strong, and beautiful hand of my first wife Cassie as she died too soon from ovarian cancer," he said. "And I held the hand of my funny, wonderful daughter Charlotte last year before she died of this terrible disease that was passed down." It wasn't just new sadness. Bron Royans, one of Pierce's best friends, said it best, Charlotte's illness brought darkness. Pierce was reliving the whole nightmare. He had found love again, married Keely Shaw Smith in 2001, and started a new family with 2 sons, Dylan and Paris. But when Charlotte got sick, it all came back. It hurt him so much, Roiland said, but Healy was there for him and held him together through it all. Then the worst thing happened, Charlotte got married. On June 14, 2013, she said, "I do," to her longtime partner Alex Smith. 2 weeks later, she was gone. She died in London on June 28, 2013, at exactly 2 p.m. She was with her husband Alex, her 2 children, Isabella, 15 years old, and Lucas, 8 years old, as well as her brothers Christopher and Shaw. She was born in London and studied acting there, which is also where her life ended. PS released a short statement after she died. Charlotte dealt with her cancer with kindness, bravery, and respect. It was amazing how strong she was. In her last weeks, she planned her wedding because she wanted her kids to know that love still mattered. Charlotte's daughter Isabella lost her mother when she was 15, 1 year after Charlotte had been diagnosed with cancer. Luke was 8 years old, the same age that Pierce's son Sean was when his mother died. The repeat of history was almost too exact and cruel. Charlotte was known as a mother who gave her kids everything. Claire Beckwith, one of her friends, remembered her saying she didn't care about acting anymore. "This is my family," she said. "I want to give them all the love I can." In 2 weeks, Alex Smith went from being newlywed to a widower. He now had to raise 2 kids who had just seen their mother disappear. Pierce, who was now a grandfather, stepped in and took over, still grieving but trying to be strong for the kids. But not all of Charlotte's siblings were able to deal with their loss. Christopher Brosnan fell very hard. He was only 19 years old when Cassandra died in 1991. He had a lot of potential and worked on Pierce's Bond movies like Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough. But the pain got to him, and he was fined £1,000 for driving while drunk in 1996. In the following year, he was sent to jail for 3 months for doing it again. Next came drugs, GHB and heroin. He passed out outside of a London club and fell into a coma. In 2012, when he was 32 years old, he was arrested again, this time for having heroin on him. He had joined the Brixton drug scene and was no longer the person he used to be. Christopher made his first public appearance in 20 years in June 2024. He was 51 years old, skinny, and alone outside of a grocery store in London. At the same time, Keely Shaw Smith had been going through her own battle. For years, the tabloids made fun of her weight by showing before and after pictures of her body, comparing how it looked when she was young to how it looked after having children. Trolls were all over the internet. Pierce wouldn't have it. In a now famous post, he supported her, saying, "I love every curve of her body. She is the most beautiful woman in my eyes." And also because she had our 5 children. Keely, now 61, lost 100 pounds in 2024 without surgery or quick fixes. She did it by walking, swimming, eating whole foods, and being patient. Most of all, she wrote online, "For all my body has given and accomplished in 60 years. In August 2024, she and Pierce celebrated 23 years of marriage. They had met 31 years before, and through tragedy, scandal, and grief, they stayed strong. On their anniversary, Pierce called her his north, south, east, and west. Healy replied, "You are the most wonderful, kind, and beautiful person I have ever met." They were just seen at George Clooney's Broadway debut in April 2025, Keely wearing a black lace dress. Pierce is still charming and steady, even though a lot is going on in his life. He was cast as Dr. Fate in Black Adam in 2022. Pierce is one of the coolest men in Hollywood at 71 years old, according to the director. But he's also a fighter who has turned his pain into purpose. He's now an advocate and has been a UNICEF ambassador since 2001. He's marched with Greenpeace, spoken out against nuclear testing, and raised money for cancer awareness. In France, he once skipped the Golden Eye opening to protest nuclear weapons. When Charlotte was sick, he said he'd do anything to save her life, call anyone, go anywhere, and beg, but he couldn't. He's still trying to save other people.